Can you pop into another reality where you are already with your specific person and then have them show up in your life? I'm going to be breaking all of this down and more in this video. I'm also going to be telling you a story about my friend who did this and what happened. My name's Adam. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we get started, I just want to let you know I have a free energy clearing in the description below. If you want to download it, it will help you remove some of your blocks, limitations, etc. Okay, so recently I did a video on manifestation, and one of the topics that I covered briefly was the dynamic between the individual co-creation of your reality and the collective consensus reality. And it seemed to trigger some people. One of the questions I also was asked was what I thought about this philosophy or theory that the specific person has no individual free will in your reality because they're simply an extension of you. So the point I made in a couple videos ago was that we co-create our own reality, but there are limitations based on the collective consensus, because reality, the collective reality we live in, is based on a collective consensus. Now, I'm not talking about in 14D. I'm talking about on the planet right now in the human realm, because that's where most of us get stuck. Most of us, when we get too much into manifestation, too much into like visualizing our perfect reality, we can have a tendency to sort of leave our bodies and escape. And so my point of explaining that there are limitations is to get people to accept where they are before they start to create beyond that, so we can come into our nervous systems and be present for our actual life instead of always trying to get out, because that leads people into dissociation. It perpetuates more trauma. It's one of the worst things going on right now in the spiritual circles is so many people are caught in these spiritual fantasy realms where all day, every day, they're trying to manifest a specific person or a specific thing, and it's not really working because they're missing, many people, the element of surrender, turning it over and embodying, facing the trauma and the wounds within, because those are the things that are actually blocking the reality you want from happening. Okay, now, I am in no way intending to take any power away from anybody. I'm intending to give it to them when I mention the limitations of the collective. And what I mean by the limitations of the collective is simply like, maybe you don't like money. Okay, you live in a reality right now where we use money as a currency. If you want to disavow that completely and try to pop into a reality where there's no money, I mean, good luck. If on a quantum level that's realistic, I don't know. I think that that's more energetic. I think if you want to pop into a reality where there's no money, you're probably going to die first. So I'm trying to keep people here dealing with reality on some level. And before you can change rules and laws, you do have to first accept that they're there. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything, but you do have to be like, okay, if I want food, I have to either go to the store, make enough money to buy it, or move into the woods and plant seeds so I can grow my own food. There are so many options based on how our world works that you do have to accept. Sometimes, and we're coming into a time now where we do have way more freedom to co-create the realities that we want. And I know that energetically we're kind of splitting into different dimensions, and some people are going to live in this kind of a world and others will live in this kind of a world. But if you had seen that video, one of the things that I had mentioned is that the individual has various levels of free will depending upon where the collective is. And an example of that is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He was, spent 3 years in Auschwitz and Dachau during the Holocaust. And people like him and Seneca would frequently say that the only real power that we have is over our own responses. And that's my point. We co-create 100% of our reactions are responses. And on a higher level, our reactions and our responses is what reflects reality back to us. But you can also exist in times where there's tyranny, there's corruption, and that does have some sort of an impact on your life. You have to accept it in order to sort of pop out of it, so to speak. I hope that makes sense. I will do more on this collective consensus topic. I know there have been spiritual masters who have transcended the laws of reality, but even they have some sort of a limitation, because you can't just do whatever you want. There are beings that oversee evolution on the planet. There's Mother Earth herself. And you do hit these walls where you can only do so much, because the collective is not evolved yet enough to like completely allow it. So you want to always come back to your own responses, your own reactions, and yourself. That's where your power is. But even as empowered as you can be there, you still have to accept there's a collective reality too. I don't know how anyone can really debate that. The other point I want to make about creating your own reality versus the collective is, like, can you pop into a reality where your specific person exists with you? Okay, so a lot of that is energetic. It's energetic. So like if you, every person you see on some level is a reflection of your projection of them internally. But as far as I'm concerned, they do exist in their own right too. They're the version of them that you want to see through your own consciousness, but they're also there. I mean, we're both listening to each other or co-creating this experience together, and we both have differentiations in this dimension. Things are dimensional. On a high enough level, we're all one. The trick to human life is connecting to that dimension where we're all one, whilst also understanding how to exist in this one without getting stuck in it and without popping out of it and ignoring it. It's a very fine line, creating balance like that. But you have to understand that's the concept to begin with. I have known people who have popped into a reality where they were with their twin flame. I knew somebody that did this. She was actually told she didn't have a twin flame. And so she's like, what would happen if I popped into a reality where I had one? And a number of months later, this guy shows up at her door saying that the spirits had sent her, and she knew instantly this was her twin flame. She then went on to say she had like 6 months of the greatest love she'd ever experienced in her life. She never had anything like that. And she also believes up until now, she will never have anything like that again because of what proceeded to happen. So for 6 months, it was like this fairy tale love. But after 6 months, it started to fall apart. And the reason it began to fall apart from our understanding of this, again, everything I say is just my own take, and something one of our soul coaches said, was because that energy that she called in wasn't really supposed to be in this reality in a body at that time. She had willed that. And so what happened was that energy had to find a human vessel to come into. And usually the vessels that will facilitate something like that are vessels where the individual or higher level soul isn't really there. So the personality is kind of splintered. It's usually like mentally ill people because they're not really all present. So other pieces of energy can kind of come through them. But what happens when that happens is the avatar wigs out. It goes crazy. It's already mentally ill, and so now it's taking in this higher vibrational being that isn't really meant to be there, and ultimately the fucking thing explodes, which is what happened to my friend. And she said it was so excruciatingly painful, and she spent years trying to overcome this wound from trying to pop into a reality where her specific person was with her. And what is the reason for this? Well, one is what I mentioned about the difference between, physical reality and energetic reality. At some point, the body will probably upgrade enough to where we can physically pop into different realities. I don't think, I don't know anyone who's there yet. And if there are people there, it's just a few people. The majority of us who are working on healing ourselves aren't there yet. So we need to get into our body, nervous system, and heal ourselves first and let the body upgrade before we start worrying about this. It's like trying to, you have to walk before you can run, and this is like running a 1 minute mile when a lot of us are just learning how to crawl. So we're not there yet. But the other reason this happened was because, all right, why do you need to pop into a reality where you're with your specific person? Presumably because you can't let them go. Presumably because you're attached, you're in fear. So whether that's possible or not, whether they're simply an aspect of your own consciousness or they exist in their own right or not, you're still popping into a reality where you're attached, you're afraid, and your woundedness is going to be reflected back to you. So it's not going to be the reality that you want or that you think you want. You can't do this without letting go. And in order to let go, you can't do it in a healthy way without letting go. And in order to let go, you have to be willing to have that specific person not be the person. Because otherwise you are absolutely coming from ego. Because true consciousness, true divinity is open. It's all that is. It's open to all possibilities. It's surrendered. It has immense power, and it's also surrendered. So if you're not willing to just be like, maybe there's someone better, maybe there's a better version of this, you're closed. You're closed and you're holding on. And so you're going to reflect that back to yourself in whatever reality you pop into. Because yes, it is a reflection of your internal state. If your motivation is control, if your motivation is fear, if it's based in attachment, that's the reality you're going to pop into. So it's not a good idea to do this. And if you're gonna do this, if it's someone that you really deeply love and you have a level of surrender and humility, and you do feel like it's sort of an exception where you are meant to be together, then the way you do this is you just say this or something better for the highest good of all. Because then you're letting go of your individual will to control, and you're leaving it up to spirit, and you're leaving it up to the other person to make their own choice. And by treating them that way, you're just treating yourself that way, because they're a reflection of you. So you're no longer trying to control and grasp onto yourself. You're opening yourself up and surrendering to divinity, which is what helps us heal. So what do you do instead of trying to pop into a reality with your specific person? What I just mentioned, and the best thing you can do is to step back, work on yourself, work on healing your wounds, healing your attachment, healing your traumas, knowing that the more you do this, you're going to create the feeling of the reality that you think that you want from being with your specific person. And if you do this good enough for a long enough time, you'll create an even better one. But it may not look exactly the way you think it's going to look, but it will happen. So the key is in letting go of attachment, blessing the other person, blessing their specific individual free will or their reflection of you that you're trying to control, whatever it is, turning it over and knowing that that's when the best result will come. I hope this helps. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, revelations, breakthroughs. I look very forward to next time. I always very much appreciate anybody who watches these videos. Thank you so much. And until next time, peace.